Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Extension Development Studies, SOEDS, Postgraduate Diploma in Development Studies, PGDDVS, MDV, 101 Introduction to Development and Development Theories, Block-1 Development, an Overview, Unit 3 Human Development, 3.1 Introduction. In Unit 1 on Paradigm of Development, you might have come across the Human Development Paradigm of Development. In this unit, you will know the details of human development. The study and understanding of human development, HD, has gained importance ever since the disjuncture between income growth and human well-being was recognized. Income growth alone is inadequate to ensure the well-being of all human beings. The income and economic growth-based approach lays emphasis upon rising incomes or expanding output. The Human Development (HD) approach treats the well-being of people as the end of human development and looks at economic growth as a means to human development. In fact, economic growth is a necessary, but not sufficient condition for human development. The expansion of human capabilities, widening choices, enhancement of freedoms and the fulfillment of human rights are well accepted in the development economics literature as elements that define human development. The measurement and monitoring of human development began more systematically with the launch of the Global Human Development Reports (HDRs) in 1990s and the introduction of the Human Development Indices, which include the Human Development Index (HDI), Human Poverty Index I and II, Gender-Related Development Index (GDI), and the Gender Empowerment Measure (GEM). After studying this unit, you should be able to explain the meaning and approaches of human development, discuss the measurement and indices of human development, establish relationship between economic development and the human development, describe the dimensions of human development, 3.2 Human Development, Meaning and Approaches. In this section, you will read about the meaning and approaches to human development, 3.2.1 Meaning of Human Development. The human development aims to enrich people's lives by widening their choices. Through investing in people, in terms of education, health, safety, and so on, this discipline attempts to build human capability. Capability is basically what people are actually able to do and to be. Equality, sustainability, productivity, and empowerment are the four pillars of human development. This approach emphasizes the belief that though economic growth is essential, its quality and distribution determine the extent to which it enriches people's lives in a sustainable manner. The attempt is to create an environment in which people can enjoy long, healthy, and creative lives. The idea of human development is also linked with the concepts of rights, liberty, and justice. Seeing humans as ends of development process was not the sole purview of human development paradigm. The UN Declaration on Human Rights, 1948, put forward that all humans should be free and equal in dignity and rights, such as the right to work, the right to education, the right to health, the right to vote, the right to non-discrimination, the right to decent standard of living, etc. It was written in the hope that the atrocities committed during the Second World War would never be repeated again. There are significant connections between human rights approach and that of human development and capability. According to the Human Development Report 2000, human rights and human development share a common vision and a common purpose to secure freedom, well-being, and dignity of all people everywhere. A human right is claimed to be a fundamental benefit that should be enjoyed universally by all people everywhere on the basis of equality and non-discrimination. the evolution of the concept of human development can be traced to the writings of renowned thinkers and philosophers of ancient times. Aristotle, the great philosopher, reflected in his writing that wealth is not the good that we are seeking for, it is merely for the sake of something else. Another great philosopher, Immanuel Kant, argues that human beings are ends in themselves rather than the means to other ends. Adam Smith, Robert Malthus, Karl Marx, John Stuart Mill, and many other modern economists have also come forward with the similar idea of treating human beings as the real end of all activities. However, the undeniable reality is that human beings are the beneficiaries of progress, and at the same time, they are directly or indirectly the primary means of production. Thus, human beings are the means through which a productive progress is brought about. Human development has been accepted in development economics literature as an expansion of human capabilities, a widening of choices, an enhancement of freedoms, a fulfillment of human rights. 3.2.2 Approaches to human development. The human development approach is inherently multidimensional. The central goal of human development is to enable people to become direct agents in their own lives. People are not passive objects of social welfare provisions, but are active subjects with the power to determine how they choose to live. They should be empowered so that they can define their respective priorities as well as choose the best means to achieve them. Thus, agency and expansion of freedom go hand in hand. In order to be agents of their own lives, people need the freedom to be educated, to speak in public without fear, or have freedom of expression and association. The four main pillars of human development are I. Equity, 2. Efficiency and productivity, 3. Participation and empowerment, 4. Sustainability, I. Equity. The principle of equity encompasses the ideal of equality whereby all human beings should have equal rights and entitlements to human, social, economic, and cultural development, and an equal voice in civic and political life. It also recognizes that those who have unequal opportunities due to various disadvantages may require preferential treatment or affirmative action. For example, the utility derived from same levels of income or investment will vary for different individuals depending upon their personal attributes. Initial endowments or conversion factors, which facilitate transformation of inputs into outcomes. Since the opportunities available to different sections of society vary, ensuring that the sections deprived of basic opportunities such as health and education are provided access to these benefits is the goal of equality. Thus, equity aims at equality not only of economic resources but of education, health, employment, opportunities, democratic participation, etc. 2. Realization of the goal of equal opportunities leads to equity outcomes. 2. Efficiency and productivity. Efficiency is defined as the least costly method of reaching goals through the optimal use of human, material, and institutional resources to maximize opportunities for individuals and communities, thereby enhancing productivity. Efficient use of scarce national resources leads, for instance, to the building of infrastructure like roads and dams, which in turn lead to better outcomes for human beings. Productivity can be enhanced through efficient use of resources. It also requires investment in people and enabling macroeconomic environment for them to achieve their maximum potential. For human development, people must be enabled to increase their productivity and to participate fully in the process of maximizing opportunities so that they become effective agents of growth. 3. Participation and empowerment. Participation and engagement in Social and political life is an important aspect of human development. People's participation is crucial in community programs and government interventions. Mobilization of grassroots support through decentralization in planning will increase people's participation in decision-making because it brings government closer to people. Participation also enables people to seek answers from authorities and can go a long way in improving the quality of social service delivery. It pressurizes local authorities to take swift remedial action in situations where gaps or shortfalls are identified in the functioning of institutions. Empowerment can occur through enhanced participation and involvement. For instance, reservations of women in various elected bodies are made to empower them through such participation. Involvement of parents, guardians and/or communities in village education committees is another example. 4. Sustainability. Human development questions the long-term sustainability of economic growth and aims to ensure that resources are utilized in a manner that meets present-day human needs while preserving the environment so that the needs of future generations can also be met with. Hence, use of resources without degrading the environment is essential to ensure that the improvements made are not temporary in nature and have the potential for future growth as well. For instance, if the development process does not create institutions that are supportive of people's rights, it cannot be sustainable in the long run. 3.2.3 Capability approach to human development. The human development approach has been profoundly inspired by Amartya Sen's pioneering works in welfare economics, social choice, poverty, and famine and development economics. While Sen's works cover an extremely wide range of topics, his capability approach has led to a critical evolution in the field of economics and in social sciences in general. The roots of the capability approach go back to Aristotle, Adam Smith, and Karl Marx. Aristotle made extensive use of his own analysis of human beings and linked it with his examination of the functions of man. Adam Smith and Karl Marx discussed the importance of functionings and capability as determinants of well-being. If life is a set of doings and beings that are valuable, the exercise of assessing the quality of life takes the form of evaluating these functionings and the capability to function. But what actually are capability and functioning? According to Amartya Sen, capability is a vector of functionings reflecting the person's freedom to lead one type of life or another to choose from possible livings. In other words, capabilities are the substantive freedoms he or she enjoys to lead the kind of life he or she has reason to value. Just as a person with a pocket full of coins can buy many different things, a person with many capabilities can enjoy many different activities and pursue different life paths. Functionings are valuable activities and states that constitute people's well-being, such as healthy body, being safe, being educated, and so on. Functioning is, thus, an achievement of a person, what he or she manages to do or to be. For example, when people's basic need for food is met, they enjoy the functioning of being well nourished. Apart from capability and functioning, the third core concept of the capability approach is agency. It refers to a person's ability to pursue and realize goals he or she has reason to value. However, Martha Nussbaum argues that Sen's capability approach is incomplete, since what people consider to be valuable and relevant can often be the product of structures of inequality and discrimination, and because not all human freedoms are equally valuable. For example, the freedom to pollute is not of equal value to the freedom to care for the environment, she argues that one needs to overcome these limitations and to go beyond this ambiguity so that equal freedom for all can be respected. In this context, she has proposed a list of 10 central human capabilities which constitute the evaluative space for public policy. The capability approach advocates the removal of obstacles in people's lives, increasing their freedom to achieve the functioning that they value. It recommends progressive social policies which would foster the development of human capabilities, such as improved health, knowledge, skills, and also ensure equitable access to human opportunities. 3.3 Measurement and Indices of Human Development. In this section, you will read 3 important aspects relating to the measurement of human resources. Those are I. Emergence of Human Development Report, 2. Measurement of Human Development, and 3. Other Human Development Indices. 3.3.1 Emergence of Human Development Reports. After the Second World War, an obsession grew with economic growth, models and national income accounts. Viewing people as agents of change and beneficiaries of development became secondary. The late 1980s were ripe for a counter-offensive as in several countries human lives were shriveling even as economic production was expanding. The human costs of the structural adjustment programs in the 1980s undertaken in many developing countries under the aegis of International Monetary Fund and the World Bank had been extremely harsh. These measures prompted questions about the human face of structural adjustment and about whether alternative policy options were available to balance financial budgets while protecting the interests of the weakest and most vulnerable sections of society. The idea of human development had been circulated in policy circles and public debates over the past 2 decades. In this favorable climate, Mahbubul Haq, a Pakistani economist, presented the idea of preparing an annual Human Development Report. This was a move away from the usual annual World Development Reports suggested to the administrator of the United Nations Development Program in 1989. He readily accepted the idea that such a report should be independent of any formal clearance through United Nations. The first Human Development Report, HDR, emerged in 1990 and subsequent issues sought to bring the human development perspective to bear on a wide range of issues. In addition to the annual report, many countries produce their own national and regional human development reports intended to assess populations from the perspective of the quality of people's life. The broad themes covered in Human Development Reports from 1990 to 2016 are given in Table 1. Table 1. Themes of Global Human Development Reports from 1990 to 2016. 1990 Concept and Measurement of Human Development. 1991 Financing Human Development. 1992 Global Dimensions of Human Development. 1993 People's Participation. 1994 New Dimensions of Human Security. 1995 Gender and Human Development. 1996 Economic Growth and Human Development. 1997 Human Development to Eradicate Poverty. 1998 Consumption for Human Development. 1999 Globalization with a Human Face. 2000 Human Rights and Human Development. 2001 Making New Technologies Work for Human Development. 2002 Deepening Democracy in a Fragmented World. 2003 MDGs, a Compact Among Nations to End Human Poverty. 2004 Cultural Liberty in Today's Diverse World. 2005 International Cooperation at Crossroads. 2006 Beyond Scarcity, Power, Poverty and Global Water Crisis. 2007/08 Fighting Climate Change, Human Solidarity in a Divided World. 2009 Overcoming Barriers Human Mobility and Development, 2010 The Real Wealth of Nations, Pathways to Human Development, 2011 Sustainability and Equity, A Better Future for All. 2012 Africa Human Development Report, 2012 Towards a Food, Secure Future, 2013 The Rise of the South, Human Progress in a Diverse World, 2014 Sustaining Human Progress, Reducing Vulnerabilities and Building Resilience, 2015 Rethinking Work for Human Development, 2016 Human Development for Everyone. Apart from the global reports produced every year since 1990, many regional and subcountry level reports have also been produced. For instance, in India, many of the state human development reports are published in collaboration with the respective state governments. In recent times, the process of working in sub-state level reports has been launched. Human development reports are being prepared for many identified districts across the states of India. 3.3.2 Measurement of Human Development. The Human Development Index became a landmark event when it replaced the hitherto supreme income measure. The search for an alternative measure had been on for a long time, beginning around the period after World War II. Various agencies, organizations and individuals, the UN, the Food and Agricultural Organization, FAO, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, the UN Research Institute for Social Development, UNRISD, the World Bank and others, made efforts to evolve an alternative measure to replace the economic measure representing income, the GDP. The focus of these attempts was oriented towards calculating an appropriate measure which took into account the social concerns of any country's development, such as individual security, social adjustment, political participation, freedom, justice, peace, and harmony, in addition to health, literacy, employment, income, consumption, and so on. To conceptualize aspects of living standards and to be able to measure them posed many philosophical as well as statistical problems. Most agencies arrived at the conclusion that no single indicator could serve a similar purpose as GDP, nor was it considered feasible. Efforts towards creating a composite index by combining a set of crucial variables were ongoing through this period. Many earlier efforts were abortive. Although these endeavors resulted in enriching the conceptual issues surrounding human well-being. 3.3.3 The Human Development Index. The search for a new composite index of socio-economic progress began in the earnest in preparing the Human Development Report, HDR, under the sponsorship of UNDP in 1989. The new Human Development Index, HDI, would measure the basic dimensions of human development to enlarge people's choices. The HDI measures the average achievements of a country in three basic dimensions: a long and healthy life, as measured by life expectancy at birth; knowledge, as measured by the adult literacy rate, with two-thirds weight, and the combined primary, secondary, and tertiary gross enrollment ratio, with one-third weight; a decent standard of living, as measured by GDP per capita in purchasing power parity, PPT, terms in US dollar. With these three variables, the HDI is constructed in three simple steps. The first step is to define a country's measure of deprivation of each of the three basic variables. The minimum and maximum values are defined for the actual observed values of each of the three variables in all countries. The deprivation measure then places the country in 0 to 1 range, where 0 is the minimum observed value and 1 is the maximum. So, if the minimum observed life expectancy is 40 years and the maximum is 80 years, and the country's life expectancy is 50 years, its index value for life expectancy is 0.25. This index value is derived in the following manner: the difference between the actual value of the indicator for any given country minus the minimum value, that is 50 to 40, as the numerator, and the difference between the maximum and minimum values as the denominator, that is 80 to 40, gives the index value. The second step is to compile an average indicator by taking a simple average of the three indicators. The third step is to measure HDI as 1 minus the average deprivation index table to gives a glimpse of HDI for various countries in the world using 2016 data. In 2016, the top 3 countries in the world in terms of HDI were Norway 0.949, Switzerland 0.939, and Australia 0.939. Though it is observed that the HDI is steadily rising, in 2016, India's HDI was 0.624, ranked 131st out of the 185 countries studied in the Human Development Report. The value of the HDI shows where a country is placed relative to other countries. A quick glance at the HDI rankings shows which countries are combining economic progress with social development and which ones lag behind. The HDI can also reveal the potential for economic growth in a country. If a country has built up considerable human capital, it can accelerate its GNP growth by choosing the right macroeconomic policies. This is true for many formerly socialist countries now transiting to a market economy. But if the human capital is missing, it would take considerable time to create the human infrastructure needed for sustainable growth, which is true, for example, for sub-Saharan Africa today. Moreover, if there is significant investment in education and health, it is reasonable to hope that people will be able to gain access to market opportunities so that economic growth will be more equitable. Even though the HDI was initially extolled as a major policy instrument and a major policy tool, it was soon recognized to neither reflect deprivation nor to suggest the distributional aspects of development, particularly the issue of inequality. Since the HDI is a measure of average achievements, it does not take into account the distribution of achievements. 3.3.4 Other human development indices. Over the years, the HDR sought to enrich the concept, analyze one specific aspect of human development critically, and develop more elegant measures of well-being. Among the many indices introduced in the HDR, some have become annual features, while others have been discarded for want of data and the feasibility of calculating indices across countries. The Human Freedom Index is one such measure. Among the indices that have gained popularity and widespread acceptance despite a significant share of critique and debates are the HDI, the Gender-Related Development Index, GDI, the Gender Empowerment Measure, GEM, and the Human Poverty Index, HPI-1 for developing countries and HPI-2 for selected OECD countries. Each of these indices is based on a set of chosen indicators. The HPI-1, designed for developing countries, considers the same 3 dimensions through 4 identified indicators. As opposed to the HDI, which measures the overall progress in a country in achieving human development, the HPI reflects the distribution of progress and measures the backlog of deprivations that still exists. HPI-1 is based on the probability at birth of not surviving to age 40. The adult illiteracy rate, deprivation in overall economic provisioning, public and private, reflected by the percentage of population without sustainable access to an improved water source, the percentage of children under 5 years who are underweight. HPI-2, devised as a measure of human poverty in industrial countries, since human deprivation varies with social and economic conditions of a community, is also based on four indicators. They are the probability at birth of not surviving to age 60, the percentage of adults lacking literacy skills, the percentage of people living below the poverty line, the long-term unemployment rate. Another two new indices were introduced in 1995. These are the Gender-Related Development Index, GDI, and a Gender Empowerment Measure, GEM. The GDI measures achievements in the same dimensions and variables as the HDI, but takes into account inequality in achievements between women and men. The greater the gender disparity in human development, the lower is a country's GDI compared to its HDI. GEM exposes inequality in opportunities in selected areas, the participation of women in economic and political life, and in decision-making. This index focuses on women's opportunities and agency and captures gender inequality in three key areas: political participation and decision-making power, as measured by women's and men's percentage share of parliamentary seats; economic participation and decision-making power, as measured by two indicators: women's and men's percentage shares of positions as legislators, senior officials, and managers, and women's and men's percentage shares of professional and technical positions. Power over economic resources, as measured by women's earned income share as a percentage of men's PP in US dollar. In the context of the efforts being made to bring gender issues to center stage, GDI and GEM proved important tools to establish the prevalence of gender inequality across the world. With these indices, the HDRs emphasized the importance of mitigating gender disparities as being critical for overall development. HDR 1995. HDR 1995 argues that achieving gender equality is not a technocratic goal. It is a political process requiring struggle and radical shifts in mindsets. The HDRs, over the years, admit that while the concept of human development is much broader, the measures of HDI remain limited. Admittedly, the HDI is not a substitute for the fuller treatment of the richness of the concerns of the human development perspective. To come up with a comprehensive measure is a daunting task and, in fact, impossible, given the fact that many vital dimensions of human development are non-quantifiable. 3.4 The dimensions of human development. After studying the meaning and measurement of human development, it is important now to study various dimensions of human development. This section covers dimensions of human development. Broadly, the three main dimensions are I. Education, 2. Health, and 3. Gender, and 4. Human development policy perspectives. I. Education, human capital and human capability. Comparing human capital, as given by Gary S. Becker, Theodore Schultz, with the capability approach. Sen argues that education as a human capital concentrates on the agency of human beings through skill and knowledge, as well as effort, in augmenting production possibilities. The capability approach to education focuses on the ability of human beings to lead lives they have reason to value, and to enhance the substantive choices they have. Both approaches are connected because they both are concerned with the role of human beings and, in particular, with the actual abilities that they achieve and acquire. Consider the following example. If education makes a person more efficient in commodity production, then there is clearly an enhancement of human capital. This can add to the value of production in the economy and to the income of the person who has been educated. But even with the same level of income, a person may benefit from education in reading, communicating, arguing, being able to choose in a more informed way, being taken seriously by others, and so on. The benefits of education, thus, exceed its role as human capital in commodity production. The broader human capability perspective would add these roles. Thus, the human capital perspective fits into the broader human capability perspective, which covers the direct as well as indirect consequences of human abilities. Amartya Sen has identified three distinct ways to link the importance of education to the expansion of valuable capabilities. First, education fulfills an instrumental social role. For example, literacy fosters public debate and dialogue about social and political arrangements. Second, education also has an instrumental process role in facilitating our capacity to participate in the decision-making process in the household and at the community or national level. Finally, education has an empowering and distributive role in facilitating the ability of disadvantaged, marginalized, and excluded groups to organize themselves politically, since, without education, these groups would be unable to gain access to centers of power and affect redistribution of resources. Overall, education has an interpersonal impact because people are able to use the benefits of education to help others as well as themselves, and can contribute to democratic freedoms and to the overall good of society as a whole. International declarations such as the Millennium Development Goals, Education for All, and the Decade of Education for Sustainable Development attempt to look at education beyond simple human capital concerns. The human development perspective, thus, considers the purpose of education to be much wider than simply developing skills that will enhance economic growth. Education nurtures the processes of critical reflection and connection with others that are intrinsically ethical. Education brings empowerment, and it is central to human growth. Not only does it open the minds of people and further their horizons, it also opens the way for people to acquire other valuable capabilities. The Human Development Reports take into account the central importance of education. By incorporating an education indicator, literacy rates, into the first Human Development Index, later versions include education indicators based on enrollment rates. 2. Health and the human development. The conventional approach argues that health, through its contribution to the quality of human capital, has a strong and significant effect on economic growth. This approach puts economic growth as an end and health as a means to achieving this end. The reverse is also argued, where wealth is seen as a necessary input for the achievement of health outcomes. However, these approaches led to the critical question of whether economic growth is necessary for improving health. Amartya Sen, by quoting the examples of pre-reform China, Sri Lanka, and Kerala, India, describes that improvement in health without economic growth can be attained by prioritizing social services, especially health care and basic education. He says that health is among the most important conditions of human life and a critically significant constituent of human capabilities which we have reason to value. In addition to its intrinsic value, health is instrumental to economic growth, educational achievements and cognitive development, employment opportunities, income, earning potential as well as for dignity, safety, security and empowerment, one of the distinguishing features of the human development and capability approach is its focus on the process of generating health. The capability approach recognizes that different people may have different values in terms of health and often weigh these against other dimensions of life. Considerable empirical evidence supports the capability approach in substantiating the importance of conversion factors in translating health inputs to valued health outputs. One clear example of a conversion factor in health is education. Numerous studies have demonstrated that educated individuals tend to have lower mortality and morbidity than less educated counterparts. In addition, children of educated mothers fare better in terms of health than those with less education. Yet another conversion factor is the authority an individual has within their household or community to assess or convert a particular resource into a value-added health outcome. For example, the unequal rights to property, unequal access to economic assets, restrictions on physical mobility, especially in the case of women, hamper their health situation. Thus, conversion factors include a number of external conditions: the natural and man-made environment in which we operate, the formal and informal rules and regulations to which we subscribe, social and family dynamics that determine our daily lives, and so on. A basic principle of public health is that all people have a right to health. Differences in the incidence and prevalence of health conditions and health status between groups are commonly referred to as health disparities. Most health disparities affect groups that are marginalized because of socioeconomic status, race or ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender, disability, geographic location, or some combination of these. People in these groups not only experience worse health, they also tend to have less access to the social determinants or conditions. Example: healthy food, good housing, good education, safe neighborhoods, freedom from racism and other forms of discrimination that support a healthy life. Health disparities are referred to as health inequities when they are the result of the systematic and unjust distribution of these critical conditions. According to WHO, health equity is experienced when everyone has the opportunity to attain their full health potential and no one is disadvantaged from achieving this potential because of their social position or other socially determined circumstance. Health is, thus, a fundamental capability which is instrumental in the achievement of other capabilities. The unfair distribution of health capabilities may affect social justice in several ways. For example, high maternal undernutrition leads to intrauterine growth retardation, which leads to a high prevalence of low birth weight babies. This phenomenon contributes to a high prevalence of child undernutrition and adult ailments. Thus, women's deprivation in terms of nutrition and health attainment has serious repercussions for society as a whole. Deprivation in health can cause deprivation in a number of other dimensions such as education, employment, and participation in social spheres. When people are ill or malnourished, their overall capabilities are greatly reduced. Lack of good health can, therefore, be at the heart of interlocking deprivations. The 2005 WHO report finds a close link between chronic diseases and poverty. Poor health is not just suffering from illness. For those living in poverty, it pushes individuals and households towards losses in productivity, incomes, assets, and education, further entrenching the cycle of poverty. Health deprivations, thus, reinforce deprivations in other dimensions, which in turn reinforce deprivations in health. 3. Gender and the human development. In no society do women enjoy the same opportunities as men. A widespread pattern of inequality persists among men and women in their access to education, health, and nutrition, and even more, in their participation in the economic and political spheres. Amartya Sen has identified 7 different types of gender inequalities presently existing in this world. 1. Mortality inequality. In some regions in the world, inequality between women and men directly involves matters of life and death and takes the brutal form of unusually high mortality rates of women, and a consequent preponderance of men in the total population, as opposed to the preponderance of women found in societies with little or no gender bias in health care and nutrition. Mortality inequality has been observed extensively in North Africa and in Asia, including China and South Asia too. Natality inequality, given the preference for boys over girls that many male-dominated societies have, gender inequality can manifest itself in the form of the parents wanting the newborn to be a boy rather than a girl. There was a time when this could be no more than a wish, but with the availability of modern medical techniques to determine the gender of the fetus, sex selective abortion has become common in many countries. It is particularly prevalent in East Asia, in China and South Korea in particular, but also in Singapore and Taiwan, and it is beginning to emerge as a statistically significant phenomenon in India and South Asia as well. This is high-tech sexism. Sen coined the term missing women to describe the phenomena of sex ratio imbalances. Sex ratios were viewed as a composite indicator of the status of women in any society by the Committee on the Status of Women in India, CSWI, in its report Towards Equality in 1974. 3. Basic facility inequality. Even when demographic characteristics do not show much or any anti-female bias, there are other ways in which women can have less than a fair deal. Afghanistan may be the only country in the world where the government is keen on actively excluding girls from schooling. It combines this with other features of massive gender inequality, but there are many countries in Asia, Africa, and in Latin America where girls have far less opportunity for schooling than boys. There are other deficiencies in basic facilities available to women, varying from encouragement to cultivate one's natural talents to fair participation in the social functions of their communities. 4. Special opportunity inequality. Even when there is relatively little difference in basic facilities, including schooling, the opportunities for higher education may be far fewer for young women than for young men. Indeed, gender bias in higher education and professional training is observed even in some of the richest countries in the world, in Europe and North America. 5. Professional inequality in terms of employment as well as in promotions at work. Women often face greater handicaps than men. A country like Japan may be egalitarian in matters of demography or basic facilities and even largely in higher education, and yet progress to elevated levels of employment and occupation seems to be much more problematic for women than for men. 6. Ownership inequality. In many societies, the ownership of property can also be very unequal. Even basic assets, such as homes and land, may be asymmetrically shared. The absence of claims to property can not only reduce the voice of women, but also make it harder for women to enter and flourish in commercial, economic, and even some social activities. This type of inequality exists in most parts of the world, with local variations. For example, even though traditional property rights have favored men, in most of India, in the state of Kerala, there has been, for a long time, matrilineal inheritance for an influential part of the community, namely the heirs. 7. Household inequality. Often enough, there are basic inequalities in gender relations within the family or the household, which can take many different forms. Even in cases in which there are no overt signs of anti-female bias in, say, survival or son preference or education, or even in promotion to higher executive positions, the family arrangements can be quite unequal in terms of sharing the burden of housework and child care. For example, it is common in many societies to take it for granted that, while men will work outside the home, their women could work too, if and only if they combine work with various inescapable and unequally shared household duties. This unequal status leaves considerable disparities between how much women contribute to human development and how they share its benefits. The human development approach challenges the development models, which measure benefits in purely economic terms and which are based on the old trickle-down theory. According to the trickle-down theory, the benefits that are fed into the top of social structures or community organizations trickle down to everyone in the community. But as the relationships within the community and the household are not egalitarian but are governed by power and status, we cannot assume community development will benefit all the people within the community. Within the household, women do not have equal rights with men, and the benefits at the household level are seldom shared equally between males and females. However, the lower status of women in many of the countries is linked to women's inadequate command over assets, which translates into systematically lower access to community governance, health and education facilities, as well as less than optimal participation in economic decision-making. The exclusion of women from the sphere of public decision-making, weak intra-household bargaining power, and a lack of the kind of kin support that men have within their villages after marriage are also other factors which contribute to women's low status in the society. In a household, it is inevitable that both men and women have to make decisions in the various domains of economic activities within which labor and resource allocations are made. A person's bargaining strength within the family depends on his or her ownership of and control over assets, access to employment, and other means of earning an income, support from NGOs, support from the state, social perceptions about needs, contributions, and other determinants of deservedness, as well as social norms. The dominance of patriarchal relations in the market sphere, which extend to credit access, can also adversely affect the efforts of women to improve their relative bargaining strength. The human development approach is sensitive to aspects of discrimination that are particularly important in women's lives but are unrelated to income and economic growth, such as lack of autonomy in decisions about their lives and the ability to influence decision-making within the family, community, and nation. The human development approach also has the scope to delve into complex issues such as the unequal sharing of unpaid work that constrain women's life choices. Given the constraints on women's agency in almost all societies by political institutions such as male-dominated political parties, social institutions such as the family, and social norms such as women's responsibilities for care work, these issues and their underlying causes clearly must be tackled. Gender analysis has kept the approach vibrant, contributing particularly to the development of its agency aspects. 4. Human development policy perspectives. The human development approach is a robust paradigm that can be used over time and across countries as development challenges and priorities shift. In the context of the current challenges that face most countries today, 5 elements of a general human development agenda are proposed. They constitute what might be called a New York consensus, as these points are reflected in many UN agreements. 1. Priority to social development with the goals of expanding education and health opportunities. 2. Economic growth that generates resources for human development in its many dimensions. 3. Political and social reforms for democratic governance that secure human rights so that people can live in freedom and dignity with greater collective agency participation, and autonomy. 4. Equity in the above three elements with a concern for all individuals, with special attention to the downtrodden and the poor whose interests are often neglected in public policy, as well as the removal of discrimination against women. 5. Policy and institutional reforms at the global level that create an economic environment more conducive for poor countries to access global markets, technology, and information. This 5-point agenda contains a mix of old and new priorities. Social development continues to be important, given that illiteracy is still high and basic health and survival is far from guaranteed in most developing countries. Economic growth also continues to receive attention, since low growth in developing countries is a major obstacle to human development. Over 60 countries ended the decade of 1990 to 2000 poorer than at its beginning. At the same time, the human development approach has seen a notable evolution. In the early 1990s, the HDRs emphasized public expenditure allocations in health and education. Today, priorities in those areas are on service quality, efficiency, and equity of delivery, for which governance reforms are often a precondition, as well as on the level of resources. In education, today's competitive global markets require higher levels than basic primary schooling. Institutional reforms that enable the poor to monitor the use of local development funds also play a significant role in ensuring the equitable and efficient delivery of basic services. Most importantly, the HDRs have placed an increasing focus on social and political institutions that would empower the poor and disadvantaged groups, such as women, so that they have more voice in public policy making and can fight for their interests. Another critical question now is how global institutions can be restructured or created to function on democratic principles mandating the inclusion and participation of all countries and of all people. For example, what the state could do to expand capabilities in education and health constituted an important pillar of a human development strategy for both the intrinsic and the instrumental values of education and health. The changes in the human development approach over time highlight its openness to accommodating new concerns and taking up new policy challenges. The HDRs have reflected these changing circumstances, and they have shifted emphasis in the policy priorities of the human development agenda from public investments to incentives, from economic measures to democratic politics, from education and health to political and civil liberties, and from economic and social policies to participatory political institutions. They also recognize that people's capabilities to undertake collective action in today's era of rapid globalization will play an increasingly important role in shaping the course of development. It is not surprising that, in 1990, advocacy for human development focused on shifts in planning priorities and on state action. In this section you studied about the measurement and indices of human development and dimensions of human development. 3.5 Summary. Human development is one of the important paradigms of the development paradigm. In this unit you have studied the meaning of human development and various components of human development. The measurement of human development through the Human Development Index are nowadays a regular process in many developed and developing countries. The UNDP also calculates the HDI of various countries. According to the 2016 Human Development Report, India ranks 131 out of 185 countries. This unit also covers various factors influencing human development. Thank you. Subscribe to our channel for more updates, and we will see you with the next chapter.